Good morning, Manny. My name is Tracy Alexis. I hold a PhD in organizational and industrial psychology, and I've used that extensive background and research qualifications to write my book, Interstitial Cystitis, A Personal Journey of Complete Healing.
That's the whole point, right? The point of Healthful Stories is to share our journey, hopefully help others manage through their illness. And what were your first symptoms, and how did you first suspect that something was wrong?
Oh, that's a very good question. Actually, about 10 years ago, I had a total bladder death, and the doctors were extremely perplexed about that. It was precursed with some symptoms like urinary frequency, retention, painful voiding, things of that nature. But just the sudden stopping of a bodily organ was extremely devastating, and it was very challenging for the doctors to figure out what it was. It ultimately was a result of a horrific motor vehicle accident that I had been involved in just prior about 14 months. And while that doesn't really seem like a cause and relationship from one to the other, science is just now learning about the adverse effects and prolonged effects of bodily trauma and how it manifests over time. So often it isn't quick, as was the case with my situation.
And had you noticed after the accident anything that led you to believe that anything was wrong?
No, I did not. But right about the same time that the bladder completely shut down and stopped working, I ended up with horrific vertigo. And I did have a head trauma, and what the neurologist and the vestibular rehabilitation clinic both suggested was that with the sudden trauma to the head, we have little hair follicles inside the ear canal. And the way they explained it to me, it's analogous to a snow globe. So, when you shake up a little snow globe, you see the snow swirling around. And that's pretty much what happened with the head trauma. The calcifications on the inner ear hair in the cochlear had broken off and started floating around very violently in the inner ear. And it caused me to lose balance, have difficulty standing upright, made me nauseous. Again, just a very unanticipated onset of these things 14 months after the auto accident.
And you did you connect the two at all, the bladder and the vertigo?
I did not, but the vestibular rehabilitation clinic basically did. They said, look, anytime the body goes through such a horrific trauma as that, it cannot be expected that you're going to manifest symptoms immediately. And in fact, that is what happened. These symptoms basically were prolonged over a 14-month period of time before they manifested and showed themselves.
Okay. What did the doctors tell you to do once these situations happened?
Well, that's another really good question. With the interstitial cystitis, it was extremely difficult to get a diagnosis of that, and it is a chronic pain dysfunction with frequent urination, burning urination, sometimes difficulty initiating flow, sometimes just difficulty getting that urine that's collected in the bladder to completely empty out, so on and so forth. With the vestibular or the inner ear, it was a little bit more easily treated. They gave me basically a hands-on toolkit, not really any tools in it other than just some exercises I could do at home to help improve the auditory functioning in the inner ear.
And did the toolkit that they gave you work? I mean, are you now okay?
I am now okay. Of course, as with anything in life, you get out of it that which you're willing to invest into it. So if we want to be lazy and complacent and just say, I'll deal with the physical therapy another day, we don't tend to get better. But if we are very proactive in our own healing, which for me personally, I have to be because I'm such a poor candidate for medication. I don't tolerate chemicals very well. So pretty much my only option is hands-on. It's physical therapy. It's vitamins, supplements, minerals, herbs, things of that nature. So I dove right into the vestibular rehab exercises, and I also dove into a lot of research on vitamins and supplements and herbs and how to heal my bladder with those. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Oh
to
no,
interrupt you, but I know I'm toggling back and forth between the vestibular and the bladder. They're really very disparate issues. The way I approach them is very comparable.
it's all part of the story that you're sharing. Could you describe to me before you were able to get things under control? What was life like, and how did it impact your day-to-day living?
Oh my gosh. Life was basically unlivable, unbearable, as it is with any chronic disease or chronic pain onset. And there was one point in my life when I was getting up probably 20 to 25 times in an 8 hour time span at night just to go to the bathroom. So I wasn't getting any restful sleep, any of the most restful sleep, which is what they call REM, rapid eye movement cycle of the sleep pattern. And I genuinely thought about ending my life just to get away from the pain. Of course, I do have two children, and I told them, I don't care how horrible your life gets, ending your life is never an option. So it was very confounding and confusing for me to experience that type of very low point in my life. Fortunately, I was asked to participate in a medical focus group on interstitial cystitis. And I did share that with the medical doctors who had invited me, as well as other interstitial cystitis sufferers, to participate in that focus group. And when they heard that, not just from me, but also from other IC sufferers, they became very alarmed that this was a disease that patients and people who have an affliction of it would consider the alternative of not living versus living in that pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It took me 5 years to turn that situation around. It was not quick or easy, but I was determined that I was going to heal myself from that situation. And in fact, today I am completely symptom free.
That
So
is that is
thank you.
incredible to hear. I'm sorry that you lived through the 5 years of terrible,
Thank
terrible
you.
pain.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I know that it's difficult to describe, but if you could describe, your worst day with the pain, what was it like, getting up in the morning and
Mhm.
going through the day?
Well, it's interesting because at the time I was experiencing the worst of my IC symptoms was when I was engaged in my last employment for someone other than myself. So I worked for a national nonprofit, and no one really understood or could understand. My boss did have an acquaintance that he knew before he ever met me that had been an IC sufferer and apparently still had her IC, but so he was a little bit aware of kind of what the symptoms were and how it would impact my work and my daily functioning. But nobody really walks in those shoes but the individual who is going through it. I literally had an experience where one of my peer directors followed me into the restroom to have a conversation with me. And I basically just very candidly turned to her and said, unless the building is on fire, don't follow me into the restroom. There's no reason for us to conduct business in here. You can meet me in my office. I can meet you in your office. This is inappropriate. And basically, what I was doing was drawing a boundary around personal time that I needed to focus on emptying my bladder. And unless, again, Manny, someone else has experienced that, they can't possibly fathom how challenging it might be for someone with these medical problems to just do a simple task like emptying their bladder. So the worst days were, the doctors give you a pain scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being, oh, I'm happy and pain free today, and 10 being, oh my gosh, I want to kill myself. My pain threshold was at a 12 or 13. So it was totally off the charts.
Wow. And again, I'm sorry to bring up this past, but again, this is the point of the nonprofit is to share these journeys, and hopefully folks see a little bit of themselves in the stories. And
Yes.
to the point that you made earlier, take their health into their own hands, and are able to manage through, and hopefully achieve the outcome that you've achieved. Are there day-to-day activities outside of work that were impacted? Your ability to do your hobbies and things like that.
Yes, basically none of those things were on the radar. The focus shifts from being an active and engaged participant in life to just survival mode, where you only want to do the very bare minimum just to get the day over with so you can crawl back in the bed, hopefully take some type of medication that's going to help eliminate some of that pain, and just try to get rested so you can get up and do it again the next day. It was very disruptive to a normal existence. And my heart goes out to anyone who has chronic pain, regardless of what the name of the disease is and is associated with that chronic pain. My heart goes out to them. It's very humbling to walk in those shoes for 4 or 5 years, because you begin to have a greater capacity for empathy in others. And I just want to take a moment to thank you for your empathy and understanding and compassion of what it is to go through this, and also your initiative with the nonprofit to help other individuals. I think ultimately that's what we all want to do, is share our story so that someone else can get a golden nugget and apply it to their life and hopefully change their lives for the better. So thank you very much for what you're doing as well.
Well, thank you again. And I have my own chronic condition that I just resolved last year, and so I know what it's like. I used to say I was living a 30% life, and now that's resolved. It's a lot better. And so the opportunity to share our stories and hopefully inspire others is what this is all about. So for 5 years, it sounds like you were living a pretty hard life. What were some of the things that you tried, and were there things that you tried that didn't work so well? And could you talk through those?
Yes, the things that I tried that really didn't work so well came from the mainstream medical providers. One of the things that they offered me was Flomax, which is not FDA approved for women who have interstitial cystitis, but the most qualified urologist in our state prescribed that for me. And basically, on the one hand, he's handing me the prescription note, and in the next breath, he's saying, by the way, if this doesn't work, I can't offer you anything else to help your bladder work. So that was very, very disturbing. After that, I did manage to find a wonderful clinic that knew all about my condition. And basically, I went through 10 months of recurring urinary tract infections. And the doctor prescribed pharmaceutical grade antibiotics for me to take. And basically, antibiotics just destroy our gut and the biome in our gut. There's no flora or fauna left. And a healthy gut is extremely important to fighting off any disease that nature throws in our path. So, my main objection after I got off the 10 months of antibiotics was to begin rebuilding my body. I did go through some dietary changes as well. Interstitial cystitis sufferers are extremely sensitive to any type of food that is high in acid content or high in oxalic acid content. And oxalic acids are basically the way our bodies metabolize the foods that we ingest. They are an output of that metabolization. So just a horrible existence for 5 years. I wish I could paint a different picture. The next course of treatment was a medication called Elmeron. I took exactly one pill, and we're hearing all about the adverse side effects of Elmeron on television right now because there's a class action lawsuit against this product for blindness and macular degeneration. So I was taking a pill to help my bladder, but what we're finding out now is that one of the adverse side effects is blindness. So the two seem very disparate and disjointed, as many medical side effects are. Many medication side effects tend to be very uh, outside of the box of the area they were intended to treat. I took exactly one of those pills, and I suffered every adverse side effects on the label, the packaging label. And I just realized that that was not the right thing for me. So that's when I began the research that resulted in documenting my journey and putting it in a book so that it can help other people who suffer with IC. And I'll just mention, Manny, I also had fibromyalgia at the same time I was going through IC, as many interstitial cystitis sufferers tend to have. Those two tend to kind of show up together. Don't know why. but I'm not suffering with either any longer. I'm thankful to say.
No, that is wonderful to hear. And
No, no
and so,
worries.
you know, so it sounds like it's been or at least it was a terrible journey. Could you talk about some of the changes that you've made since then? You mentioned, you know, working with your doctor on the alternative paths. Could you describe some of those and what worked?
Yes. So I will say that I'm one of the lucky people on the planet. I have a doctor who's known me for 22 years. And the beauty of that is that he realizes I only show up when there's a problem. I am not a malingerer. I'm not a pill shopper. I just want help when there's a problem. And I would encourage your followers and the people who are listening to many of the videos that you're posting, Manny, if you've got a serious problem, only go see your doctor when you cannot bear it anymore or you genuinely need intervention because they're busy and they are right now in America, especially with the government so closely scrutinizing everything that doctors do, and in fact, even dictating to them how much time they're allowed to spend with a patient who has a certain or specific condition, they are jumping through as many hoops to live their lives as we're jumping through to live ours. So, with that said, my doctor's been wonderful with me. He did give me a referral to a provider who knew absolutely nothing about interstitial cystitis, and that was very alarming because this was a board certified urologist who had never done an installation in his professional life. So that was not a confidence builder, but that was the only resource that my primary care physician knew to refer me to. From there, I basically appealed to my insurance company, my HMO, PPO, and I said, look, the policies and the statutes in New Mexico are such that if you're not able to provide me with the care, the specialty care that I need in your network, you have an obligation to refer me outside the network. So I made an appeal and a grievance, and I requested that the insurance company refer me back to where I had gotten such exemplary treatment. And they did. They realized they did not have the expertise in that area. So those are some of the hurdles that I've had to overcome. My doctor was not personally um, very fluent around interstitial cystitis. All he really knew to do was to provide a referral to a urologist, which he did. And again, no disrespect to him for not having a larger network of professionals with whom he could have made a referral. It was just a limitation based on the geography of our state. So it wasn't anything he could or really couldn't do. He did the maximum that he was able. And then beyond that, I'm not real sure if I've responded fully to your question.
Oh, no, no. So what has so it sounds like you've had a bit of a health transformation from the 5 years of suffering. What are some of the things that worked best for you in your journey as you managed through?
Well, that's a really good question, too. And that's why I tried to document it and write a book about it. So I did develop what I called a basic toolkit, which was to start my morning with a very strong probiotic to rebuild that gut health that I mentioned earlier had been destroyed with the 10 months of antibiotics. That was first and foremost was to rebuild my gut so that I would be in a position to fight off other illnesses should something else try to attack my body. Um, then my toolkit also included vitamin C coupled with a 4,200 milligram cranberry fruit extract. And it's the combination of vitamin C with the cranberry fruit extract that creates a hostile environment in the bladder for bacterial growth. So, what that did was fortify my body so that I would never have another urinary tract infection. And most men don't really experience urinary tract infections, very few do. But for women, it tends to be just an incessant problem. It's particularly aggravated by intercourse. And there are some other issues that, because of our physiology and how our bodies are built, there are some other contributing factors that go make us a little bit more susceptible to a UTI than a man. But with that said, it's such a miserable feeling. I couldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So when the urinary clinic mentioned to me that this was a great combination to not ever have to suffer with another UTI, I was on that immediately. I will say, just as a caveat, some interstitial cystitis patients will not be able to take the vitamin C because it's highly acidic. And that's the one thing that creates the burning sensation when we go to empty our bladder. And then the last thing that I added to that basic toolkit was, at the time, it was a tea that was made by Swanson Vitamin. It was called an alkaline tea, an apricot alkaline tea, but they've since discontinued that. So in my book, discovering that they discontinued the tea, I mentioned that they did replace it with pH protector drops, which are available at swansons.com, and they're very affordable. And it's just a way to alkaline the water that we drink so that it doesn't burn when it comes out of our bladder. And that's one of the biggest problems that most women have, and men too, with burning urine. It's highly acidic, and that's one reason it burns. And it can also burn and traumatize the bladder more, just sitting in our bladder waiting for us to empty it out. So I found those drops to be very, very helpful. And then one way we can check our bodies to see how acidic or alkaline our urine is just invest in over-the-counter test strips available at any pharmacy, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. Any of those places would carry them. A herbal store would carry them. And you just basically pass it right in front of your urinary stream when you're voiding, and it's got a little color chart like a rainbow on the back, and you line it up to the rainbow, and that will tell you exactly how alkaline or acidic your urine is. Those were the basic tools in my toolkit that helped me progress very far, very fast.
That's wonderful. And so you mentioned, resolve your symptoms very quickly, both the pain as well as the vertigo as well.
This didn't do so much with the vertigo, but it
Okay.
certainly did work with the interstitial cystitis. The toolkit that the vestibular rehab gave me for the dizziness I was experiencing, that's what worked well.
Okay.
Some visual tricks to do while I was walking through the house or outside on a walk.
Okay.
Very easy little things to do.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, congratulations on managing through. It sounds like you've done wonders for yourself, which is incredible.
Thank you.
What kind of advice would you have for individuals suffering with interstitial cystitis? Anything that you would recommend that helped you get through?
Yes. Take one day at a time. Celebrate your small miracles, whatever they may be. Sometimes it's just getting up and getting out of bed. That's worth celebrating if that's an accomplishment that you didn't have the day before. So do celebrate the small victories. Be very kind to yourself. Don't worry about what other people think, because very few people are going to understand this disease or how limiting it will be for your life as you navigate through it. And last but not least, stay hopeful. If you believe in anything bigger than yourself, get on your knees and pray, because prayer is powerful and can help us overcome every obstacle in our life. And if it weren't for my faith, I would not be healed right now. I'm absolutely convinced of that.
Wow, no, that's very powerful advice and very great words for
Thank
many
you.
folks suffering. And so, I wanted to thank you for sharing your journey, and congratulations on
Thank you.
overcoming the pain. And I understand it was extremely debilitating.
Thank
And
you.
for sharing your solution, right? Hopefully your solutions work for someone out there,
I hope so.
and they can overcome as well. So I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time today. Your journey. I'll take a few minutes to edit the video. Maybe I can remove this background noise. We'll see.
Well, I don't hear any of it. I hope you don't hear my heater, which just kicked on.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. So
Good.
I think we're in great shape.
Thank you,
I
Manny.
did want to thank you, Tracy, for sharing your journey. It's been absolutely a pleasure to learn from you and to walk with you as much as we could. I have a saying myself where you don't you can't understand anything unless you experience it yourself. And so this is kind of my way of reaching out to folks to try to understand their journeys, and hopefully collectively we can all improve our lives, which is kind of the most important thing we have. So thank you so much, and I wish you a great rest of your day, and congratulations again on all your success. And if you want to back up your book again, I can make sure that there's a good picture for the website here. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. And
Thank you, Manny.
to staying in touch.
Thank you. You as well. Bye bye.